Buying a home is one of the biggest financial decisions many people will ever make. But for a lot of buyers, credit is a thing standing in the way. Maybe you've got a few late payments, maybe you don't know your score. Either way, understanding and improving your credit can be a game changer when it comes to getting approved for a mortgage. Today, we got credit repair specialist Dominic Jackson with Guaranteed Financial Solutions with us, and he's helped countless people take control of their credit and get on the path to homeownership. We're going to take a dive into the biggest mistakes people make, what you can do to improve your credit in the next 6 to 12 months, and what to avoid during the home buying process. Hey, Dominic, thanks for being here. Before we get too far into things, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got started with credit repair and what you do kind of in a day-to-day.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for inviting me here. It's an honor to be here. My name's Dominic Jackson, and, pretty much from the Grand Rapids area. Been here 40 plus years. So
nice.
Yep. My wife, Amy, and I own Guaranteed Financial Solutions, and, proud father of 8 kids and 3 granddaughters right now, still waiting for a grandson, but
wow.
Yeah. Big family, but getting into the credit repair space, it was through personal experience.
Okay.
Unfortunately, not having a real understanding of credit and really finances, led me to a lot of bad decisions in life, and ended up going through 2 bankruptcies.
Yeah, I remember your story when we first talked. It's really inspiring that you kind of dug yourself out of that too. So with help, of course.
With help, right. And, that led to a lot of pain in life. And I think that really is what led me here, because it was after going through a divorce because of those issues and getting remarried and wanting to provide something for our whole family. Right now, you're trying to blend a family of 8, and how do you really do that? And so,
credit's a big important part of that.
Major part, because I couldn't get a home. Right, it's like I had just gone through bankruptcy, lost our home, and so we reached out to the owner of the company that we now own. Maybe we'll get to that, but through that, he took us through the actual process, and 6 months later, we were applying to build a new house, and a year total, we ended up moving into that house. And so that's what led me into the credit repair space, was because it was through that process and, in a whole. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, growing up, or what was more exciting about getting into credit repair? Was it owning a business, or was it about helping people? What are your real passions about the business that you're doing now?
Definitely helping people.
Okay.
There's no question. Yes, my wife and I always wanted to be in business together so that we could do ministry. That was really the focus behind the business side, but helping people, realizing that 30 plus years of my working life has been in and around credit. And so it was just a great thing to be able to do, but to provide education, because that's the key to credit, is really being educated about it.
And I think personal experience is definitely something that is going to help you speak to it better and really have a good understanding of what people are going through. So how has that been working with your wife? I think that for me there'd be exciting parts, and there'd be parts that I would maybe not that excited about. How's it been for you?
Yeah, in all honesty, it's been great. It was tough, though. I'll be honest. It was one of those things where, I'm a kind of just a go guy. And so you kind of want to just take things over, but realizing this is her business.
Yeah.
And, this was really kind of her passion to go into this and to do. And she said, "Hey, I'm going to run the business. You go out and be the face."
Yeah.
And so it's actually
have your own department.
It's working great. Because she said, I'll run the day to day, but you go tell people about credit and educate them and train them. And so it's working great, to be honest.
You're pretty much the Bob Barker of the business,
exactly.
the spokesperson. All right.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that this was like your ministry. So how do you look at this as a ministry to help people? What other things do you do kind of in that process of credit repair?
Yeah. Great question. So Part of that is the education side. And so, we started a nonprofit, and in that it was to be able to educate the community and people in the whole around that. And then also helping individuals who, need help, with their credit, but they can't necessarily afford to that help. And so we want to be able to help them in any way we can to get the help, And so on both sides of that front, educating, and then also, it's not always about money. And so
I could imagine having credit issues being pretty frustrating for somebody. A lot of times when you have credit issues, it's because you don't quite understand what credit is and how it can affect you kind of long term. So getting out of that without help is probably near impossible, right? Because the same things that you've done in the past, if they keep repeating themselves, you're never going to get out of that hole. So how do you help people kind of not repeat the same mistakes? Education would be a big part of that. What other things can you do?
That's one of my biggest frustrations in all of this was when I would see a client come back, and it's like, oh, I just don't want to see them back to us. It's like, did we not do enough the first time, right? Education is the biggest key, but being I was a person who experienced bankruptcy twice, I also understand that sometimes it just takes time. Sometimes you have to go through things several times in order to come out on the other side. But being there with them, being able to walk through it with them the entire way, right? And so it's just continuing that education, and it's also reframing a lot of things. So a lot of times, for me, it came from some past trauma as to how I dealt with money. And so it's helping them in understanding why they keep finding themselves in this situation. And so, yes, it's about credit, but most of the time it's dealing with some things that are much deeper, to be honest.
Do you share that with them, that you've been through it before? And I think that would be a lot more powerful coming from somebody that's been in that situation, and now you're in a totally different situation. Do you feel like that's has an impact on the message you preach?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
100%. I'm not afraid to share that because it's the only way I feel like I can truly help people to be authentic to who I am, what I've experienced in life, what I've gone through. And if I can share that with others, if it helps just one, then I've done my job.
It's awesome. Yeah. So credit repair sometimes gets a bad reputation because I think there are a lot of predatory companies out there that are just looking for a monthly fee, or what are some of the common misconceptions that people have about a credit repair agency?
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? There are many bad actors in every industry, and unfortunately, we've seen a lot of that in the credit repair space. But the reality is it is a legitimate thing, and people can get the help that they need through the credit repair process. And it is a process. It is a legitimate thing. And so that's why we've done things the right way. We aren't there just for the money. We've helped many, sometimes for free. And that's what it's about, just making sure that we aren't the face of doing things wrong, but doing things the right way. So
when would you say, as a human being, the right time to start thinking about your credit would be?
Wow. I would say it's always good to know because so many things happen, especially with identity theft being the number one crime in America every single year for pretty much the past decade. It's always smart to know what your credit is, to constantly check it, to be updated on it, and just to make sure there's nothing happening to you. So I think it's always best to be aware of what your credit is, even if you have bad credit.
Okay.
Because you'd be surprised, how the system is set up. So.
Personally, I think they should do more financial education in school. Are those classes available to younger people that could be interested in their credit?
Yeah, and there's some initiatives out there that they're pushing for that. Matter of fact, I know that the governor introduced some new things in the state of Michigan for financial education, and I know there's some national things being pushed for that education and finances and credit. But we have some things that we do all the time as well throughout the city, be it at a church or some other nonprofits that we work with, where we're just giving classes for free too. So a lot of that's on our website that they can find too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So in my industry, real estate, right? A lot of times home buyers don't think about credit or how that can affect them until they're ready to buy or rent a house.
Mm-hmm.
I think even landlords now, when they're renting, are looking at credit. When should somebody start paying attention to their credit when they're buying a house? Like,
wow. My recommendation would be 12 months to 2 years.
Okay.
In all honesty, because time is your friend in that case. You know that you want to be able to get a home within the next year, 2 years. Start paying attention to those things, because you need time sometimes to make sure that you're able to address those things to put yourself in the best position for a loan, if you're going to need one, for sure.
I mean, not just the loan, right? It also impacts the interest rate that you're going to get, the other terms maybe that come with that mortgage,
exactly.
The amount you can qualify for. So it definitely has a big impact on your overall buying power. So what are some of the biggest credit mistakes people make?
Biggest credit mistakes. The biggest mistakes is obviously are going to be your late payments. Because that's 35% of your credit score, and we can get into some of that. But making those late payments, high utilization, so meaning that you use a lot of your credit, maybe your credit card, you have a high balance, you use most of it. Even if you make a minimum payment every single month, don't miss a payment, that still affects you big time. And I think a lot of people just aren't aware of that. And also taking out new credit, especially if you're going to go get a mortgage.
Okay, new credit.
That can affect your debt to income big time. And so just want to be mindful of those things, especially when it comes to buying a home and going through the mortgage process.
One thing I hear a lot is people closing credit cards out before they go apply for a mortgage. Why is that a bad thing?
Well, it can be a bad thing for several reasons, but the big thing is making sure, again, it affects your utilization. Okay. So meaning if I have 2 credit cards that are both $1,000 and maybe I'm only using 1,000 total. So I have what they would consider 50% utilization. But if I go out and close one of those, now I'm at 100% utilization. Well, that just drastically changed my score because my utilization jumped. And so you don't have to use it. There's no harm in keeping that open. That's definitely one of the misconceptions, that people just close them because they think it's a bad thing. Leave it open, use it every once in a while. That way it keeps your available credit, maximized.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's good advice. So what about late payments? Like what's a good step for somebody to take when they have a late payment? Are there phone calls you can make or people you can talk to about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And great question, because a lot of times you can actually contact the creditor themselves, especially sometimes they have a goodwill, and you can ask them for a goodwill because, maybe there was a reason that it happened. But it's always best to at least ask the question, at least find out what's available out there before you just accept it.
Okay.
Definitely contact them.
Yeah. Doesn't hurt to have that conversation. The worst they can tell you is no, right?
Exactly.
So there's all these different credit score companies like FICO and Vantage, and you got Karma now, and all these different credit scores. Which one really matters?
Well, if we're talking in the mortgage world, yeah, right. That is definitely one of the biggest frustrations that I see a lot of clients, because they don't understand, well, what do you mean I have that score? My Credit Karma says this, right? And but they are different. FICO is the original score creator, okay? And in the mortgage industry right now, FICO is the most important, the only one that matters, matter of fact. But Vantage was created by the big three being TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. They created a score to be able to compete with FICO. And so they offer that through many different places, but Credit Karma by far is the biggest use of the Vantage score. Okay. Which Credit Karma is just a marketing site. And so they use the Vantage score to market to us as consumers. Tell us what we might qualify for, what we might be able to get approved for. And anytime we click on it or check, they get paid.
It's working. I definitely have conversations with people and they're like, let me check my credit. And they just pull it up on their app. So,
which is one of the things I love that aspect of it because it brought attention to people. But it confuses them.
Gamifies it a little bit.
Yeah. It just confuses them because the scores are just totally different scores. It's not the same thing.
Which, I guess they're both kind of trying to tell that same story, but they're getting different answers, which I could see that being confusing.
Yeah.
So if somebody was going to buy a house and it has maybe 6 to 12 months before they want to buy a home, what are some of the things they can do to maybe prepare for that? Are there any ways to boost your credit, or who should you call? Like if you maybe feel like you have problems, and maybe checking out that Credit Karma would be a good option too. Just to have an idea of where your credit score is. But what are some other things they can do to maybe improve their credit?
So the first thing I would tell them is to make sure they pull a report. The biggest thing is not knowing what's really on there. Sometimes even just checking Credit Karma or those might not have everything. So I would actually tell them to go to annualcreditreport.com, not reports, just annual credit report. You could pull one every single week now. So that's one of the things that changed. It used to be you could only get one a year. Through COVID, they started doing once pretty much every month, and now it's one every single week.
What kind of information do you get in that?
Everything that you're going to find in any one of the reports, because you're getting all 3 of your actual reports from TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And so that's going to show everything. Won't give you a score, but it's going to show all of the information in there. And so I think that's the most important thing, is knowing what's on there. And then you're going to identify any errors. Okay. That's the most important thing, is checking for errors. And then once you see the errors, you can actually dispute them. But the biggest thing is, if you're 6 to 12 months out, make sure the first thing you do after checking your credit is making all your payments on time. You need to make sure first and foremost that you're not missing any payments. Because if all of a sudden you miss one at month 3, well, that just changed everything again. So you want to make sure you start making those payments on time for sure.
So on that report, are you getting like what open accounts you have and what closed accounts? Like anything that reflects on your credit report is going to be on that website.
Anything for the last 7 years, if it's non-bankruptcy, 10 years if you had a bankruptcy, but it's going to show everything. Unlike sometimes when you work through a credit monitoring, it doesn't necessarily always pull everything. So it's best to use that annual credit report.
So, and you're also going to find out if maybe somebody opened an account in your name that you didn't know about. So it is a good idea to keep an eye on that. That's awesome.
That's right.
What's maybe a lesser known strategy that people are using to improve their credit?
Lesser known strategy would be using authorized users. If you have a family member, that's one of the ways we helped our children. There's risk involved in it, but you definitely, with the authorized user, you get the full history.
There's risk. Having my credit card attached to my Amazon account, right? Like 100%. My kids get on Alexa and stuff starts showing up. So this sounds like 100%. Pretty good risk, though.
It's a great risk because, it really does help establish, because like I said, they get the full history. Matter of fact, I just had this conversation with a young gentleman that always reaches out with credit questions, and he wanted to know how his girlfriend had 21 years of history and she's only 24. And it's because of her parents. They put her on as authorized user, had a card that they had for decades, obviously, and just starting out. And so that counts on there. She gets the full history, even though it's only been on her record for the last year, 2 years.
I think there's a big need for that, changing the cycle, right? So growing up, think that's a conversation I ever had with my parents, like credit or how to save or to build wealth, and you don't learn it in school. So I think it's up to the people now that learned it to make sure their kids are educated on that, and so that way it isn't a cycle anymore, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Are there any classes that parents can take their kids to? And
yeah, I know, like I said, the ones that we run, there are some that you can do online now as well.
Okay.
That are out there that you can take. There's even some apps that teach kids about credit and about finances. So there's some really cool tools out there. You just got to search for them.
Yeah, I mean, my kids definitely have a tough time saving because they see it and they feel like it's theirs. But we kind of force them to do it, and I'm hoping it's teaching them a good lesson. Right?
Good.
So, for somebody that's feeling really overwhelmed, like what's something they can do to start improving their credit situation? Is that a service you guys provide?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, if you're overwhelmed, I would tell you it's okay. Like, I've been through that. I understand that feeling big time. And just to make sure you give yourself grace, but to get started, right? Just to take that first step. And they've probably already done that because they're at that place where they're feeling a little overwhelmed. They want to get things better. They want to make things better. And so feel free to reach out. Definitely, we're always there to help, but just take that first step, pull that credit report, start learning, start teaching yourself, educating yourself. That's going to be the biggest step and the biggest key in the whole process.
Sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really helpful, Dominic. Yeah. Where can people reach out and find you and more information about Guaranteed Financial Solutions?
Yeah, our website at guaranteedfinancialsolutions.com. That's going to be the best place.
Okay.
Of course, they can follow me on TikTok. As a matter of fact, on our Facebook page, we have a Facebook page. We give out a lot of free information. Again, we keep you updated as far as any classes we're going to be teaching in the community, anything we're going to be doing that way as well. But definitely feel free to reach out.
I remember you telling me you had a Facebook group also.
Yeah.
What goes on in there?
Thank you. So we do a lot of the same things. We have a free private Facebook group. Just want to make it to where people feel comfortable being able to ask questions, but give out a lot of information, a little more detail, a little more in depth, help them with questions if they are disputing things on their own, maybe what the next step might be. We've brought in our lawyer that we work hand in hand with. He's done some private classes in there as well, and helping them in that process too. So it's really good.
You got TikTok, you got Facebook, you got Facebook groups, you got a website. So there's so many different ways that people can reach out to you and find out information. I can imagine that Facebook group being very helpful for people to search history and to see what other questions have been asked, because sometimes like you just don't know the right questions to ask, right? So seeing other people and seeing that in a group setting could make it a lot easier for somebody to have those questions.
Yeah, and we have step-by-step in there too. So step-by-step guides of what they can do and different things. And we're available for them. We have a few different admins in there as well to make sure that, their questions are getting answered for sure. And then we also do our guaranteed action plan. So even if somebody just needs an action, like we put a very detailed plan together for them on the credit side, and then just give them some action steps they can take finances wise to help them, just a one-time thing too. So, try to give everything we can to help the consumer. So
without giving names, and beside your own story, what would one of your biggest success stories be?
Oh, by far helping someone get into their home. Yeah. It's the number one reason people come to us for sure. That feeling of being a homeowner, even like you said, ourselves of being able to go through that, but the calls of having others, say, I was finally able to get my home. Like, that's just phenomenal. And not even that, you'd be surprised how many times just in the initial conversation that you have with a client or potential client, or especially when they sign up, like you can hear the weight come off of their shoulders. And it's just amazing to be able to share the story, but then for them to know that there's hope, that they can do this. They will get through it, and we're here to help them. And so those happen. I can't tell you how many times.
And you think that the weight is probably lifted because they know that you're there to help them, right?
Right.
So that's awesome. And I think, buying a home is definitely a big accomplishment in anyone's life. And I know of lots of people that their parents didn't own homes, their grandparents didn't own homes. And for them to kind of break that cycle also, and to be a homeowner and to have that accomplishment under their belt, I think is super powerful. And it's awesome that you're able to help them through your ministry and your company. And thanks for sharing your story today.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me in the share.
Yeah.
Appreciate what you're doing too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, and for those listening, if you're planning to buy a home and you need to work on your credit, it's not something you should wait. You should start thinking about that now, even if it's a few months or a year or 2 years out. Credit is such an important thing in our daily lives. It affects interest rates, affects the ability to purchase on your vehicles, on your homes, your credit card interest rates. There's so many different things that credit scores affect. Right? Even insurance too, right?
Yep.
Credit scores affect that, which
Jobs,
is crazy.
insurance,
So jobs,
it's unbelievable.
So if you found this episode helpful, share it with somebody who could benefit, and be sure to subscribe so you can hear tips and to make home ownership a reality. See you next time.